Hi, everybody. Welcome to Modern CPA's vlog. Today, we're going to talk about does having a small business help with taxes? How do we answer that question, Michelle?
Well, I think, we have to look at various components because a small business definitely allows you the opportunity to um, take expense deductions that you otherwise may not get as an employee. So let's talk about what some of those things are that, there could be things that an employee also incurs to do their job, but because of their classification, they aren't able to take that as a deduction any longer. There was a law at one time that allowed for that, but that has since changed. So,
Right, exactly. Yeah. So, the federal government doesn't allow you as an employee to deduct expenses that aren't reimbursed from your employer. Now, if your employer is reimbursing you for your out-of-pocket expenses, that's great because you're not out economically those dollars because you're getting reimbursed for that. But
mhm,
if you have to put out money that you can't get a deduction for and you're not getting reimbursed, then you're kind of in a worse position as an employee
mhm.
than if you were the employer. Now there's other benefits that the employer can give you, but strictly speaking, on the expense side, you're behind a business owner.
Right. Well, I mean, when you're an employee, you also have to remember that one of the biggest benefits of being an employee of someone else is the fact that they are providing half of your Medicare and Social Security taxes, which is a pretty steep number as far as a percentage goes. So, when you are considered self-employed or have a business of your own, many times you would be liable for some of those taxes on your own, and it's not just half, it's the full amount.
Right.
So
Right. So yeah, so that's a big number when you're talking about on a percentage basis of your income. But being in business for yourself, it's not just the expenses that you can benefit from. There are other deductions that you could potentially have, and other options you have, is especially when you're looking at retirement plans. When
mm,
you're an employee of somebody, you're stuck with whatever retirement plan that company has, if they even
mhm,
have one. And being self-employed, there's a number of different options you have for setting up a retirement plan.
yeah,
And there's lots of different contribution levels, so you can really sock away a lot of money in retirement, potentially, being having your own business.
right.
So that's one really good benefit, and that can help you in taxes and also help you in your financial security in the future.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the deductions that an employee and being self-employed, those types of deductions that you're or expenses that you're incurring that you would want to be deductions. Many times, even as an employee, you're maintaining some sort of office, whether it's a business use of your home or whether you have to, rent an office space. Those are the types of deductions that most small businesses incur. And let's go through just real quick a couple of the other ones. We do have a
Yes.
master class, and we have a course that's up level your small business IQ that really dives into what some of these deductions are. But let's just give people on the surface what to expect, like some common ones.
Yeah, I kind of like to think about them in two different buckets. You have the direct expenses, so these are the 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 money that you have to pay directly related to your expenses, any supplies, rent for office or your facility that you have to outside of your home. All of these, insurances,
Hmm.
um, business insurance. If you have to hire people to work for you, all of these are expenses for your business. Indirect expenses are more of the things that are business, part personal. So if you have a cell phone that's under your family plan or your own plan,
Hmm.
so that's a mixed use expense. Your home office is a mixed use expense because you have your residence and you have your office space or the whatever area within your home you're using for the business. So
Yeah. You're also your, the business use of your personal automobile
mhm,
falls into that as well.
exactly.
Many people like to take aggressive positions on getting deductions for autos, like, oh, I don't go anywhere other than for my job, and that can work to a certain extent, but we all know we use some bit of that personally. So, you know, maintaining and monitoring and logging is what the IRS is going to want to see.
Yeah, anytime you have a mixed use kind of expense, you want to make sure that you're tracking the personal versus the business. Whether
Hmm.
when in your example of the auto, when you're tracking the miles. So what mileage is used for business, what mileage is used for personal, and that'll kind of dictate the percentage that you're able to deduct. Same thing with your business use of home. All of the different aspects of all the different categories that you can add to that, but
Hmm.
what is the percent of the home that you're using for business? And there's some special rules that the IRS requires in order to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So
So a good example of somebody who may have worked for, I have a story that is like, somebody works for someone, they subscribe to certain journals for their industry to keep up on, the changing landscape, let's say, and they have a personal in their house, they have an office that they use for their business. Well, they decide then later that they're going to become a consultant doing the same thing, but they're not working for a particular employer anymore. They are a subcontractor, and what used to be non-deductible things, all expenses, what they were incurring all along,
right.
now are able to be written off against that income that they're receiving as a subcontractor. So you can really start to see, and it's a different mindset shift when you go from being an employee where either they reimburse you or that you're just not able to take those expenses, to a subcontractor or running your own business, and looking for the things that really are associated with the business that maybe before you had written off as not being, we're not able to take those as deductions.
Yeah, and a big shift in your mind is now you have to be able to track all of these things, and you have to be able to organize all of that stuff, and that's where potentially an accounting software may need to be implemented, or some sort of spreadsheet or some mechanism for you to do that, and also potentially using separate bank accounts, separate credit cards, so that you're able to track that stuff a lot easier. And
Right.
I always recommend that to anybody who's has a business to keep everything in a separate account.
Even
That
a sole proprietor could benefit
yeah,
from that, because although it's not required, it is so much easier to manage those expenses, understand what's being spent on the business. It just gives you a leg up in the organization of it.
absolutely. It's very, that's where we see most people ask us, how can we save on taxes? What can we do to do this better? And really it's the organization. You
Mm,
start with organization and making sure you're tracking everything you need to track, and organizing and putting all that stuff in the accounting software, in the spreadsheets, whatever. That's kind of step one, and then we can get into what other things that you're doing would you be able to deduct? So,
yeah, yeah, and start digging into that further. Well, I think
right.
this was a great podcast. I think we touched on quite a few things, a bunch of things for people to digest. So if you like our podcast and like our blogs, please subscribe and follow us on YouTube. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. And we also are offering a masterclass right now at moderncpaonline.com/masterclass. Thank you for joining us today.
Take care.